All right, so real quick, I'm just going to get right into it and just roll this into one video. I have been putting off the FanFest reaction thoughts video for so long, but we just got a ton of information at PAX, way more than I expected. And so everything past this intro part, past the title screen, is going to be recorded from a couple days ago, in fact, actually. And this is all fresh from PAX. So first off, we do have dates now. It is going to be Friday, June 28th, 2024. 4 days after my birthday. Yay! Dawn Trail for birthday. Woohoo! Good stuff, good stuff. That's going to be the early access release. So if you pre-order, that's when you're going to get access to it. If you don't, you're going to get access to it a few days later on that Tuesday. We will be streaming it here on that Friday. I'm going to try and make sure I have off that Friday so that I'll be right after work hitting it right and hot so I can go ahead and suffer with that. Pre-orders begin in 3 days on Tuesday, the 26th. They're going to kind of stagger the release. It's all going to happen at once on Steam. Here's a spoiler for you. You're going to be pre-ordering this on Wednesday because the pre-order site's not going to work on Tuesday. I want to be wrong on that, but let's be honest, this site's going to crash. It crashes every year. Oh, be prepared to pre-order on Tuesday, but expect to pre-order on Wednesday. System requirements have gone a little higher. The CPU requirements for the minimums has gone to an i7 7700 instead of a 6700. I can't remember how much of a difference there was between Gen 6 and Gen 7 i7, but apparently enough to make that differentiator. Honestly, the CPU is so old that if you have a machine that's basically functional now, you're fine. You're literally fine. I have a scrapyard PC over there I could throw this GPU into, and it would run this just fine. All right. Memory, you recommend have 8 gigs or higher for your minimum. 140 gigabytes or higher. That says it says for the minimum requirements a hard drive. Do not use a hard drive. Use an SSD. They cost roughly the same, unless you're going crazy high capacity. Then hard drives are anyway. Graphic card. You need a minimum of a GTX 970. Now, GTX 970 normally also means you can go up one generation, so a GTX 10, and then one number lower here. So, minimum wise, a 1060 is going to still be fine for your minimum. I want to stress this is the minimum. It is going to be functional. Is it going to be a good experience? It could be way better, but it will be a stable experience, just not a good one. And then an RX 480 or higher. If you're using an RX 480, please, for the love of God, get a new GPU. I'll just tell you that right now. And then you need at least a 720p screen. I want to run this now on 640p out of spite. Recommended system specs is what you should be aiming for anyway. 9700 or higher, which is pretty standard CPU nowadays. That's still pretty old. That's like a 4-year-old CPU. Even my scrapyard PCs and their Xeons are this strength or higher. And these are like a couple $100 PCs, so you'd be fine. 16 gigs, you should always be running 16 gigs. This 16 gigs, recommended specs for running FF14. 16 gigs the minimum to be running a computer. Now, they recommend SSD. I want to address the 140 gigabytes though. 140 gigabytes does not mean that the game's going to be 140 gigabytes. It means the game's going to be 70 gigabytes. When they do these recommended specs, they double the game capacity because they want to assume when they patch in a worst case scenario that an entire other copy of the game has to be there to replace the old copy of the game. So like if I had to do a deep repair of my copy of FF14, I would be downloading a full copy of the game. That's why they do this. So this game's not going to be 140 gigabytes. It is going to be 70 gigabytes. I'm just telling you that right now. RTX 2060, 6 gigabyte variant. I hate the fact they have to include this because there's a 2060 3 gigabyte variant and it's way worse. So keep an eye on that. If you've got a 3050, you're fine. I'm rocking a 3060 Ti on my gaming PC, and I know it's gonna be fine. Radeon RX 5600 XT. The power difference between these two is kind of drastic, actually, because the 5600 XT is actually, if memory serves, it's been a while. Granted, I'm pretty sure the 5600 XT is like a significantly slower card than the 2060. That's kind of weird. But there's your specs. Know them well. Odds are more than not, you're fine. Now, there's going to be 4 editions. Standard edition, you're probably going to be getting that. Or digital collector's edition. That's probably what you're going to get. If you are a crazy dedicated person, you can get either the physical box copy, which does not include the game for some reason. You still have to go ahead and get the digital download of that. Hopefully they give you a key, so you at least get that, so you're not spending a couple $100 for this collector's box and then spending another $70 for the game or whatever. I actually don't know what the price is. They didn't go over that. Spoiler alert, by the way. Or the collector's edition includes everything. So let's go over that. This is the in-game collector stuff. It includes this arc mount, which is a cruise chaser. We saw a video of it. I'm not going to show it here because we're just trying to go over this very quickly. It transforms. It's cruise chaser, just in a different color scheme. I missed what music it had, but it is what it is. Wind up Garnet is your minion, and you get a Chocobo brush. So you too can copy Realm, but not her outfit. The physical edition comes with this box that you will treasure for all time. This very unrealistic copy of Zidane here. Obviously, it's the Viper statue. This map, and then a whole bunch of other goodies. This interests you? Good for you. It doesn't interest me. I'm going to avoid it. Now, if you pre-order, you get Wind Up Zidane, and you get Azima's earring. Zidane, obviously, a kind of play on the whole Viper thing, because Viper was based on Zidane's character. Azima's earring. We're going to Dawn Trail. Azima's the goddess of the sun. It's clever. Azima's earring is also going to boost your EXP by 30% up to level 90. So that's everything we know about Dawn Trail now, which is a lot. We now have a deadline. We now know I have 3 months to go ahead and get everything up to level 90. Whew. Challenge accepted. Also, to the surprise of literally, well, actually, surprised to a lot of people, actually. I'm the only one that was able to piece this together. The holiday event ends on April 2nd. Lo and behold, as soon as the holiday event ends, the FF14 and FF16 crossover event begins and lasts the entire month, going from April 2nd to May 8th. I already know from a data mine what is in there. Here's what I will say. I'm not going to give any hard spoilers, but be ready with Gold Saucer. Be ready with Manderville GP. That's all I'll say. Just be ready with it. You're gonna need some if you expect to get everything from this, unless the data mine was a complete hoax, which it might be. But that is everything we learned from PAX. My name's Eagle Falcon and all that, but after this, we're gonna get to the actual video, which is now gonna be all stuff that is recorded before all this, so I'm gonna say some dumb things. So let's begin. The first thing to note is the fact that going through the actual post-game of Endwalker has taught me a lot about how this game intends itself to be structured, and actually going through the history of how things were. Endwalker, it was clear that the actual post-game content, the actual MMO content after the main story, was very lacking because they did a lot, underline a lot, of housekeeping. Every single patch of Endwalker had to go ahead and make sure that they were touching up on older content, which is good. Realm Reborn desperately needed it, especially the finale. Oh my god, it's so much better. But other parts suffered, and there was definitely better ways they could do that, and there's definitely a lot of lessons that can be learned from post-game Endwalker. But they're now well into the development cycle of Dawn Trail, so those lessons better have already been learned. We can go over those down the road and discuss it, and I'll save that for another video. But for now, let's analyze what we have so far. So the story, we know that after, well, let's start with this, okay? We have very little build-up to what goes on in Dawn Trail. Normally, the way the game is structured, we have 3 patches of wrapping up the old expansion. So, for example, in Shadowbringers, you had 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3 leading up to the finale of what goes on in 5.3, and it's a big climactic emotional moment. But in 5.4 and 5.5, that is all specifically to build up to what happens in Endwalker. That's when your villain is introduced. That is when your first teases are introduced. That's when you get your first pieces of the puzzle as to what you're going to be facing. And that was the case in every other 0.4 and 0.5 patch, except for A Realm Reborn, where they had no idea what they were doing. In the case of Endwalker, okay, and this did not help for the content drought at all. Patch 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, and 6.5, all 5 of them were 5 parts of one consecutive separate story that was almost completely unrelated to what happened in Endwalker. All we had for lead up, no joke, is just this very, very last patch, the 6.5 patch. And they've done this before too, where they split the 6.5 MSQ into 2 parts. One part actually has your dungeon, and the other one has a solo trial. That's your 0.5 or your 0.55 has a solo trial and like just a last bit of teasing up into it. And I gotta say, the one going into Endwalker, the 5.55, great solo duty, loved it. Really showed just kind of the how everyone's got to go ahead and pitch and take on everything. The one for 6.55 hits very hollow. When if you know, you know, right? You just go in, you're in a dungeon you've already done. You get a little bit of character development for the character you literally just met, 5 minutes ago? Which is, don't get me wrong, it's very important, but it feels nowhere near as hype, because everything, all 3 of these patches, or all 3 of these quests that make up the 6.55, or is it 3 or 4? Doesn't matter. Those few quests you have, it took me, an hour to complete? Not even? It took me an hour to complete with voice acting. Other people, it probably took them even less time. It's not hard patch content at all to do. Okay? With that said, okay, all it was introducing our new character, the new lead for Dawn Trail. She's a great character, all right? She's going to be interesting. From a role-playing perspective, I know one of my characters is interested by the concept of the challenges that come ahead. The other one, in fact, actually specifically this one here, absolutely not interested. Like, honestly, from a storytelling grabbing point of view, this character has no reason to go to the New World other than just for possible new discoveries in her trade. That's it. She has no reason to go over there, but you got to come up with something to keep the story going, right? But I digress. I do suspect very strongly this story is going to be nothing amazing, all right? We have gone from A Realm Reborn, which was, your introduction, and was kind of lackluster, to Heaven's Ward, which taught you very quickly that, yeah, we can pull at your heartstrings. We can go ahead and hurt you emotionally. We can do it, and we will. You go from that to Stormblood, which had its flaws, but was still a pretty good stereotypical Final Fantasy story, even though it could have been done better. There's a lot of ways it could have been done better, but it is what it is. And then you have Shadowbringers, which by far is my favorite story in by far is my favorite story in all of Final Fantasy 14. Everything that happened in Shadowbringers is just top notch. And Endwalker, the 6.0 Endwalker, was fantastic as well. I don't think it was hit as hard as Shadowbringers, but it still, for me, hit really well and put a nice bow around everything. And then 6.1 to 6.5, the story of, we'll just call it the Zero arc. That was really lackluster. I'm not going to lie, but that was clearly meant to be a tease for a future expansion. And that's one thing I want to point out. The reason Shadowbringers and Endwalker hit so well is for one big reason. They had the ability to harvest on everything they've built up to. For Dawn Trail, there's nothing. We know we're going to a new world. We know it's going to be very South American themed, but there's one big mystery in it that we don't know. Okay. And I've been intentionally speaking pretty vague from here on up till now to try and be as spoiler free as possible. From here on out, though, that is no longer the case, because we have to talk about one thing that was shown in all the FanFest things, and that is Solution 9. So, spoilers from here on out. 3, 2, 1. Solution 9 is kind of a weird one. Okay. While the rest of the world, the new world, seems very like, what's the right word? It seems underdeveloped compared to what you're used to. Like right now, I have a scenic shot of old Charlian up here, and it's, you know, it's a relatively well civilized city with plenty of architecture and whatnot. What you have in Turiolo, or however it's actually pronounced, it looks very run down. It looks very, we have kept ancient ruins going and are doing the bare minimum to keep it afloat. And it's not a bad look. It's not a bad design, but it is one that kind of makes you think we're just gonna be kind of casual here. And in fact, the look of Wuklamat, our female Hrothgar friend we've now just discovered, she's also a very kind of rustic and, to quote the Garleans, a very savage looking warrior, like very tribalistic. That's actually a better word. A very tribalistic kind of warrior. And that's kind of the vibe we're going to be seeing, at least so far, is a very kind of large tribe sort of vibe, until we saw the sneak peeks of Solution 9, a Magitech city where purple reigned supreme, a city in which, if I didn't tell you it was Solution 9 in Final Fantasy 14, you'd think would be part of Night City or some spin-off of Shadowrunners or something from the cyberpunk genre. It looks very, very much unlike anything we have seen in FF14 before. And it looks something more akin to Late Allagan. There are options in the PvP menus for gear called Late Allagan, and they look very much like cyberpunky sort of stories, you know? Very simple looking designs, that sort of thing. Or not simple, but very futuristic, very, very sci-fi, all right? That these look unlike anything we've seen so far. In fact, actually, our relic weapons that we got seem more like to be from Solution 9 than the end result of Manderville Perfection. It's very bizarre. Actually, we kept saying Star Ocean when we looked at them. It looks very Star Ocean, kind of. How does this thing play in? And I think the mystery behind that is going to be the crux of this story, because other than that, it looks like a beach episode. This story definitely in Endwalker is going to feel like a beach episode, where it's going to be chill, good vibes, until it's not, until there's some type of grand mystery. I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to really like yank at our heartstrings like Shadowbringers did. I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to be quite like the emotional sledgehammer slamming down on everything to finish it off like Endwalker was. I don't expect anything to be truly emotional like any of the other expansions. There's nothing to build up on. There's no tension unless Solution 9 proves otherwise. But I also think the crew knows one thing. they just tried to go from one world ending threat, in fact, actually an all worlds ending threat in the Endsinger and Endwalker, and then they tried to go ahead and give us Zeramus in the Zero arc to give us yet another world ending threat. And quite frankly, it fell flat. Granted, it fell flat with me, especially because I could tell you're doing FF4. I could tell right off the bat, you're doing FF4. You're doing an FF4. It's going to be Zeramus. You're going to go ahead and throw a Zeramus at me. It's somewhere. It's inevitable. So there's no surprise there. And that probably didn't help anything either. Heck, the tail end of Endwalker for the events that happened during the bulk of Ultima Thule didn't really hit emotionally at all either, because I've seen this trope 1,000 times. And the entire time it's like, yeah, you're going to be back. You're going to be back. You're going to be back. I don't care. You're going to be back. You're going to be back. You're going to be back. Who cares? That didn't hit like at all for me. I don't expect there to be anything big in Dawn Trail, but it is going to try and tell a story and set up a potential future threat or potentially future allies. And that one I'm kind of hoping for, because the Scions are great. All right. They are fantastic. Don't misunderstand. But at some point, you do have to start introducing new allies, which is what Zero is, obviously. Because at some point, those Scions are going to want to go their separate ways for whatever reason. I just talked about how technically, canonically, after saving the world and after the events of the Zero arc, this character here would have no motivation to go ahead and go to the new world to go ahead and take part in some sort of rite of succession to help someone she's never met who, well, while she tries to be a very civilized and well thought out warrior, she's being recruited by one that is a very stereotypical warrior that she's trying to fight against the stereotype of. There's no reason for her to go. She has no reason to go to Dawn Trail. At some point, you're going to run out of reasons for Urianger to continue adventuring. You're going to run out of reasons for Thancred to not settle down and try to look after someone significant, whether it be Reen or someone else. You're going to run out of reasons why Y'shtola isn't just settling down with Runar. It's all going to come down to that at some point, you know? The twins, of course, they're still young. They can go ahead and do whatever. And G'raha Tia is just basically your fan club. He's going to stick around for a while, especially since he's just been introduced. Eventually, you're going to run out of reasons for characters to be there. So, you're going to have to start introducing new allies, and they're going to have to be well written. So, we'll see what Solution 9 has to offer. Now, we already know our Alliance raids and our regular raids. We'll start off with the Arcadian, which Arcadian? I don't know. The Archean? The 8-man raids. We don't know anything as of the time of recording, other than the fact that it very much looks like Solution 9. It very much is going to be a cyberpunk themed kind of 8-man raid. And those are going to be your Savage raids as well. This story I'm going to be far more interested in. We also know that Solution 9 is going to be our raid town, and that Turiolo is going to be our new city. We already know that. So what is this going to mean? I don't know. But then I have to look at it from the Alliance raid perspective, where we have a FF11 crossover. I'm going to be blunt. I expect the Alliance raid story to be absolute dog shit. Full stop. I expect the story there for the Alliance raid to be complete and utter hot garbage. And I mean that as no disrespect to FF11 fans. But if there's one thing I've learned from the storytelling of these crossover raids, is that the story never ends up hitting as well as they hoped. The Nier story was just kind of okay, but it just made me go, wow, I'd rather play Nier. And the Evil East raids really just made me go, wow, I'd rather play Final Fantasy Tic Tacs. The only exception to the rule has been the FF3 crossover, and that's because the FF3 themed frickin' Alliance raid, you had nothing to go with in FF3. FF3 barely had a story. It was almost non-existent. you could fit it on a Yu-Gi-Oh card. It's not a very complex story. You had a lot to expand on and a lot of ways to integrate that into your world. It wasn't a true crossover the way Evilise was, where Evilise is a very well-established universe, and you have to work within those parameters. It's the same thing with the FF11. FF11, for some reason, is still going on strong. It's still being actively developed. So you have to stay within those boundaries, and you're very confined as to what kind of story you can write. I expect the story to be garbage. I'm really hoping that the FF11 crossover alliance raid follows the other two crossover raids, the Evilise and Nier ones, and the fact they upped the difficulty. Because I'll tell you what, I loved the story of the 12 from Endwalker. The storytelling was fantastic, and I got a good smile at the very end. Well told story. I wish there was more. The fights were dog shit. They were awful. And I don't mean awful like, oh my god, the fight for Hephaestus was awful because it was just freaking bad angled snakes and suffering, and it took us months to clear it. No, it was awful because it's boring. I'm right now only doing those raids because I want the gear and I don't want to go back into Savage because I want to break from Savage. I'm only going in for my coin. It's a chore. I'm not excited about going to Thalia. I'm not excited about going to Euphrosyne. I'm not excited about going to Agalia. I just want my coin and be done. That's literally it. And when that oh, excuse me. And when that's all your raid is, you failed. Straight up. Whereas for the Evilise raids, the first two are kind of interesting. Orbital Monastery, I'm excited to go into. I'm excited to do those fights because they're fun, they're challenging, and I love seeing people just go ahead and discover the mechanics for the first time and just kind of smile and chuckle as like, that guy died. And then for me to die something too, it's like, all right, I deserve that. That was kind of funny. I can laugh at that. And then on top of that, just the feel, the epicness, and God, Sidolphus Orlando, oh my God, the God of Thunder, and those wonderful thunderous lines, they're so iconic, of just hearing them go, open your eyes to the darkness and drown in its loveless embrace. The gods will not be watching. And every single one of those, just hearing that echo to you as you're struggling to remember what these mechanics were. Even when you remember, they're still fairly challenging. It's great. It's fantastic. I'd love to say the same for Nier, but Nier felt way too long, and I don't know why. Like, on paper, I should love Nier. But man, the Nier raids felt like, they also felt like a chore because they just lasted way too long. I don't know what the correct answer is to the Alliance raids, but I hope the fights are at least good because I have no faith in the story. I think the story is going to be a complete waste of everyone's time. Whereas the actual 8-man raids, the Arcadian raids, it's going to be an original story. Hopefully it means it's going to be good. Original raid stories lately have been hit and miss. I was not a fan of the Pandemonium stories, although some of the things they explored I liked. But then the story before, the Eden story, oh, Chef's Kiss was fantastic, despite it being just one big old FF8 mashup. They still the unique elements they explored were great. It's a great, fantastic story, and I wish they'd do it more. We'll have to see. One other thing I've kind of noticed, though, I don't know if they've talked about it in an interview or not, but as far as returning systems, we know we're getting variant dungeons, which each one's probably going to be unique in that regard. They're going to be nice little casual and light core content. There is not a peep about Criterion. Criterion was a dungeon mechanic introduced in Endwalker, and no one liked it because there was nothing to do. It was literally just going for a mount, and that's it. Criterion Savage didn't even have a reason to do it. And I could go into a whole other video as to how they could have saved Criterion, and I probably will at some point. Well, it basically boils down to they need to come up with different mechanics. And I think what would have helped a lot is the roulette and tome rewards. Because there's no reason to do Criterion. They eventually added unique weapons for Criterion Savage for the very last one. But even the people who can do them, I've never done it, were just like, yeah, that's still not great. You're doing a lot of work for not a lot. And kind of got a point. You're doing a lot to get that weapon. You got to go ahead to get that weapon, clear P12 normal 4 times and 500 cap tomes to get the weapon, or clear P10S, the Savage version, once and win the blade straight up and get 500 tomes to get your weapon. Then you have to clear P11S to get the solvent to turn that 550 weapon to a 660 or that 650 weapon into a 660 weapon. Then you have to clear another Alo Island Savage, the Criterion Savage dungeon, to get another one. And that was basically a mini ultimate to get another upgrade weapon, to get another upgrade thing that upgrades it to a 665 weapon that now has a special effect on it. That's a lot of steps for admittedly a good looking weapon, but that's just it. It's just a good looking weapon. It's kind of disappointing in that regard to do all that work just to end up going, oh yeah, it's pretty. But the fact that Criterion is not mentioned at all in any of the keynotes says a lot. It is kind of concerning. It might mean that Criterion's not coming back. They might have just given up on it entirely, which it can be saved. It can be made good. I know it can. And I'd like to go into more detail about that another time, but we're already going on almost a half hour here before editing. And we got more to come up on. All right. And then, of course, there is lifestyle content that is going and visiting other worlds. I have no idea what to make of this. But here's one thing I can say. All right. Whatever you do in regards to that content, do not, under any circumstances, think very highly of it. We made this mistake with Island Sanctuary in Endwalker. We thought it was going to be like a little Animal Crossing clone. We thought it was going to be Stardew Valley. We thought we'd be able to interact with our minions. And realistically, it was none of that. You built an island. They added island decorations way too late into the development of it. And it was a big old nothing when push came to shove. You got some cute cutscenes. It was okay. And that's all Island Sanctuary was. It was okay. Once you get the ball rolling on Island Sanctuary, it took about a week every patch to do what little content you got in it. But that was about it. The end. And you can just reduce it down to checking a checklist every day during the reset. That's it. You can even just do it once a week and just be like, oh, 3 weeks and I'm done. LOL. Hopefully the lifestyle content won't be that mundane. I hope they did learn from Island Sanctuary. We'll have to see though. Now, of course, there's still more info to come with Dawn Trail. At the time of recording this, PAX has not happened yet, and we still don't have a release date. A lot of people think we're going to get a release date at PAX, and they base this solely on the fact that there was a data mine of the most recent patch, and we already have our pre-order items. We already know them. A Zidane minion, and the, oh god, I forgot her name. Azima, I think? Oh god. Frick. The earring of the fire goddess from the 12, who is the goddess of the sun and knowledge. Or not knowledge, wisdom. All think is, oh wait, frick. I should not be trying to do this off the top of my head. The important thing is that she is the goddess of the sun, which makes sense. We got Menfina earring for Endwalker going to the moon. She's the goddess of the moon and love. Makes sense. Get earring for the goddess of the sun going to Dawn Trail. Makes perfect sense. Zidane minion. We're getting Viper job, which is basically Zidane. And Solution 9 is one of Zidane's limit breaks. Makes sense. But people are saying that because we already know these minions, oh, that means the pre-order is going to be coming soon. That means we're going to get the date soon. Oh, we're going to get the day at PAX. Oh, we're going to get the day at PAX. We might get the day at PAX. I don't think we will. If we do get the day at PAX, I'll be more than happy to go, oh no, I was wrong. Darn. But I actually do think we're not going to get the release date until the, 12-hour live stream or the 14-hour live stream. I can't remember what it is anymore. But the big live stream, they plan on doing it. I think that's where we're going to get it. And that's scheduled for like the end of April. Here's what I will say. If we get the release date on PAX, the release date is going to be middle of July. If we get it during the 14-hour live stream, end of August. That's just my hunch. They have a lot planned, and they want to make sure they do it right after Endwalker was just kind of lackluster when all is said and done. But honestly, the people who win the most right now are the people who haven't cleared Endwalker yet. They're looking to push to the end and be ready for Dawn Trail on launch. Because the rest of us, we've been waiting for Dawn Trail since patch 6.3. A lot of us have just been done with the lack of content since the middle of Endgame in Endwalker. Granted, Anabasio Savage did help quite a bit in tying us over. We're ready to move on, but I think we still got a long way to go before we're ready to get there. But that's all my thoughts right now with Dawn Trail as we know it. I'll cover more and more theory crafting and things I'd like to see done as things go. So feel free to subscribe here for more info on that. And also check out my Twitch page, twitch.tv/EagleFalcon, and give this video a like too. Give a comment down below. I want to hear what you guys have to think. I really do. And small channel, I'm going to read every comment. I guarantee that. Until I actually can't. Take care, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.